Okay, hello everyone. My name is Elizabeth Ramirez, and I will be presenting Idioms of Distress among individuals under the criminal justice supervision. I would also like to thank my mentor, Dr. Brendan Clark, and his graduate student, Crystal Maroney, for guiding me through this research study. So individuals under the criminal justice system are more likely to experience depression at higher rates than the general population. However, only about 20% of this sample receives treatment from the Mental Health Institute. With victimization and violence being a prominent part of these individuals' lives, it makes them more susceptible to psychological effects from distress. In fact, major depressive disorder, also known as MDD, has been shown in this population. It's been linked back to distress coming from their environment. So it's important to diagnose MDD with this population so that they are able to receive proper treatment. Okay, so idioms of distress is defined as the response to affliction while being sensitive to its cultural context. So for example, you'll have populations such as the Caribbean Latino populations who won't just come out and outright say that they've been feeling sad or depressed. Instead, their culture responds differently, such as reporting symptoms of feeling dizziness. Another example would be individuals in the rural East Asia. They report somatic symptoms instead of coming out and saying that they've been depressed or feeling sad, such as stomach pain, fatigueness, and even insomnia. So as we can see, idioms of distress tend to influence the willingness to share feelings in the healthcare setting. So you can have these individuals coming in to getting evaluated for depression, but they're not going to answer in the way that these instruments were designed to detect depression. So applying idioms of distress in the clinical setting is beneficial because it allows for a diagnosis that is culturally sensitive. And this is done because the symptoms that are experienced are then interpreted to its cultural context, and in the long run, facilitating effective therapy. Incorporating culture to analyze depression is very important because it has an influence in our perception. Culture is created by interactions on a day-to-day basis, the community we're surrounded by, beliefs, and even institutional practice. Correction facilities create the opportunity for the development of community because these inmates are cohabitating with each other on a day-to-day basis, creating values, norms, and perceptions of health. So the purpose of this study is to identify the best predictors of MDD among individuals in the criminal justice system under supervision by incorporating idioms of distress. We hope that this creates resources for this populations, since they do tend to be limited, and begin using appropriate criteria to diagnose those who have MDD. So the sample was taken from a secondary data analysis that included 510 participants, and these individuals were from a community correction sample, such as those who are under parole or probation. And materials used to assess, we had a demographics questionnaire, just to get information, a little bit of background like age and race, an addiction severity index, also the ASI, to get criminal history background, such as the length of incarceration, violent offenses committed, if there was any family dysfunction, if they had any substance abuse, physical or sexual abuse history. The Mini International Neuropsychiatric Interview, which is also known as the Mini, which is used to diagnose and identify MDD. We assessed pain with the short questionnaire that had questions such as quality of sleep, if they had any gastrointestinal issues, and pain in general. And then we used a perceived stress scale, the PSS-10, to review the amount of stress experienced within the last month. And then the last instrument we have on here is the Centers of Epidemiological Studies for Depression. That's a mouthful. So we will say CESD, and this was used to assess the severity of the depressive symptoms. So the way we did this was the clinicians did 2 interviews, including the Mini, and then the ASI. And then after this, we had the individuals complete the self-report questionnaires, which was the pain, the CESD, and the pain questionnaire, perceived stress, and the CESD. And then once we collected all this data, we ran a univariate comparisons, and this is basically for us to identify if these variables were even related within each other to determine if we needed to move on and continue. And once we found these variables did show a correlation, we then ran a logistic regression to get a little bit more insight. So basically, in my study, to identify if these idioms of distress were predictors or not. And so here are the results, and the three items bolded are the CESD, perceived stress, and pain complaints, and those were all significant predictors of MDD. Now, when we looked at effect size, perceived stress was the #1 predictor of MDD, and it outperformed CESD, which is an instrument that's been used in the past, and it's been reliable in literature and all shows this. So for something to outperform an instrument that's been used in the literature is very important, and perceived stress is an idiom of distress. So perceived stress was the #1 predictor of MDD. CESD was the second best predictor of MDD, and lastly, pain complaints was the third best predictor of MDD. So in conclusion, idioms of distress significantly was able to predict MDD among a community correction sample. And more specifically, the idioms of distress I'm talking about, shown in the previous slide that were significant, were the stress and the pain. So these individuals felt a lot more comfortable reporting that they've been feeling a lot of stress and even physical pain, instead of expressing feelings like sad or depressed. With further understanding of idioms of distress, psychologists can effectively treat and identify those who have MDD under the criminal justice system. We could possibly even see a decrease in recidivism due to the improvement on providing these coping strategies for the criminal justice to use to help them process the distress they experience when they are being integrated back into the community. Future research could include a broader sample, such as a more balanced ratio of men and female, and looking into those who are currently incarcerated, since my sample focused on the correction sample, such as those who are on probation or probation and, what was the other one? Parole, thank you. And these are my resources. Do we have any questions?